Welcome to Energy and Me. I'm your host, Ashley, and today's special guest quite literally fills my heart, Vaness Henry. Vaness and I are both 88 manifestor babes on the roof, and this is a conversation that will change your life when you hear Vanessa's journey and the modalities she shares to help people understand their health by listening to their bodies. As a cancer survivor, Vaness brings a depth and groundedness to this conversation that you can only earn through lived experience. Today, we are talking about the human design variables, shamanic arts, and feng shui. And we really get into what it actually means to listen to your body, not just as a concept, but as a practice, and how environment is everything. Welcome to Energy and Me. I am here today with the amazing Vaness Henry. She is a journalist, shamanic practitioner, and one whose work focuses on helping people understand their health by listening to their bodies. Vaness, welcome to Energy and Me. I'm so happy to have you here today. Please.
Hello.
Welcome. So tell us all about you. We want to start with just a quick introduction to yourself. I know I've found you through the human design space, and you've quite literally changed my life in following your work. So I'm so happy to have you here and sharing all that you do, from the human design to shamanic practices. And I want to hear all about your journey today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to sit with a fellow manifester. And you have a human design literate audience, right? Listening to you. So I feel like we can kind of really go into some of these details because my area of expertise where I specialize in is deeper in design. A lot of people only get to, really intimately experiment with their design type and authority. And once you start scratching beneath the surface and you are experimenting and you're practicing, what does my body sound like? How does my body alert me and give me signals? How do I trust myself? Usually what starts to happen is you start to notice that the world around you has changed. Your friend circles may have changed. You may live in a different place. You may have a different job. And these are all examples of radical transformation. As you're living by your design, as you are learning how to trust yourself and the authority you have in yourself, life around you can start to switch. And I always like to say, when you start to notice that, when you look back enough and go, oh my gosh, like this, I'm so different now from when I started, let's say, experimenting with this, that's usually the time when you're then ready to learn about the 4 variables that impact your wellness. How do I need to feed this creature in order for it to be nourished? What do I need to have around it so it develops properly? What kind of habitat and lifestyle does it resonate with? And then how does this body, mind see the world? What's a clear headspace look like for me? And when have I lost that clarity? And finally, how do I learn? How do I become more aware? And those 4 variables, once you're ready to look at that, that is where you're kind of entering the fine-tuning process of your energetics. And the reason I came to that area of work was because I was somebody who was a journalist. I wrote a lot about wellness and health. I had been a childhood cancer survivor and was working with the Canadian Cancer Society and doing motivational speaking and educating young women, young girls in the school system about listening to their bodies. And the magic of their bodies because I got sick as a child. And that connected me to, I kind of got a little break with, I started writing for Cameron Diaz's Community Around Her Body book project. And I was sort of a wellness and spiritual writer. And that connected me to a lot of interesting people in that world, which is how I discovered human design. And 10 years later, was in this area working with people and started to have really impactful results with people who were sick. And that kind of tugged at my heartstrings because I had somebody who had been sick. When I started to see people who were unwell go into remission or have really healthy changes in their life, I started to want to be a little bit louder about it. And like you, I'm in this phase of my life called on the roof, where we are sort of detached. No, we're kind of zoomed out and we're reviewing everything that happened to us in our, first chapters of our lives. And it's kind of shifting the way we view the world. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. I practice shamanic healing with a private client base. I educate people on the energetics deep in their variables and their human design. And I'm a writer. I do books, I do poetry, but I started in journalism and just kind of reporting on things like this that I discovered.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. So what was it in your body where I like to talk about people's experiences of when they kind of come to understand their energy, to align their energy, and starting with like, what did it feel like in your body when you were out of alignment? So if you're open to it, do you mind sharing more about kind of your experience with cancer and
Absolutely.
how that really impacted you? And obviously it shaped your journey.
This has been an exciting, thought-provoking year for me because it's been my 20-year remission. And I kind of knew that would have an emotional impact on me because I knew that this was, ever since I was a kid, this is kind of where you wanted to get to. They said, once you reach that point, you're really in the clear of that cancer. And cancer statistics, our medicines have come so far from when I was treated. But the statistics were if you survived 5 years after diagnosis and you relapsed the very next day, you would still meet their numbers for qualified survivors. So it's kind of a skewed stat, and there's even fewer people who make it to the 20-year mark. And more of us are reaching this stage. But why doctors have become interested in us is because they're now like, okay, what are your long-term side effects? Now that we've poisoned you so intensely when you were a child, we do really need to know how that harmed you so that we can make corrections, right? And while there is something in that feels noble, like, ooh, I'm contributing to the larger collective growth and awareness around this, you also just feel experimented on. And it's really hard to hold those two things.
Yeah.
And when we were, I was quarantined as a child because I was so sick. So when we went through the pandemic and we were quarantined and we were forced to take these medicines, I was very activated by that because it was like,
I can only imagine.
maybe it was kind of like it's time to deal with these things that you dealt with now. So if I could zoom back, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma at 16. I had a giant tumor filling my entire chest cavity, and this is essentially a blood cancer. And I remember thinking, my blood has gone bad? Like, I'm bad even in my blood? It was really psychologically upsetting when I was in this developmentally vulnerable age.
How old were you?
And when 16, when we
16.
found that.
Oh, goodness.
I was in grade 11, and it was
Yeah.
going into safe grad, where I was going to go to like the party at the end of the year for this older boy who was graduating. Very exciting time in the year,
Uh-huh.
But I had not been feeling good for about 2 years. When I was 11, my dad had passed away from skin cancer. And so that was a huge blow to the family. And watching my mother have really a nervous breakdown from losing the love of her life, my sister and I really had to grow up in that phase. And the years in between there are a little bit blurry. I remember becoming a really high performer at school. I was on student council. I was a dancer. I was a cheerleader. I was in leadership programs. I was a competitive vocalist. I was doing everything, And
It was like
when
keeping
I was
yourself busy to maybe
You know what,
And-
too? Like, I was a third line, and I think I was just
Mhm.
figuring out, like,
Try
what do I
everything.
like? What am I interested in? I was really scared of boys. So I just,
I was with you there.
Um, So what had started to happen was I was competing vocally, and I was working on an album at the time. I was doing really good in music. And my mentor, this coach I had, her name's Cindy Kane, she was a kind of a country rock kind of singer. And she was helping me, and she had kind of said, your vocal projection should really have improved, with the types of training and technique we're doing. And if anything, it's receded. Your vocal power has decreased. I think you should go to the doctor. So I was like embarrassed, right? Like, oh my God, like I want to be this good singer and, and I went to the doctor. I had an x-ray, I had a scan, I heard nothing. And so I went to my coach, I heard nothing. So 2 years later, a year and a half later, maybe, excuse me, I just go to this grad party at the end of school and we're up all night because it's called safe grad. So like the kids can be up safely till 6 a.m. or whatever. And so I just came home and the sun's coming up. I just crawl into bed and my mom comes and wakes me up that we've got a call and you've got to go to the hospital. And I remember she had been weed whacking and she had like hurt herself. And I was like, what did you do now? She's like, no, they've called for you. And I'm like, for what? Like, keep in mind, I haven't been to the doctor in nearly 2 years. And they said, you have to come in right now. So it's 9 a.m. I'm so groggy. We drive in, we go to the hospital. I'm taken into oncology. And we are familiar with oncology. Like my dad passed away. We were in that environment. So I'm kind of like, what is going on? And these doctors bring me and my mom into this room and they put an x-ray on the screen. And I can see the date is 2 years before. And I'm like kind of looking and the whole x-ray is cloudy. It's just a big, you can see where my neck is and you can see like little boobs on the side. But the whole interior is a big white cloudy. You can't see any organs. And the doctor said, this could be one of three things. They said something I don't remember. And they said it could be antibodies attacking itself or it could be a tumor. And I mentally clocked out, it can't be a tumor because my family's already been through that. So it's not that. So I wasn't even, and I remember seeing my mom in the corner of the room, just her soul leaving her body, you know? So they don't allow me to leave. I have to stay. I go on some acute prednisone and get some additional testing. And sure enough, they confirm it's cancer. Wow. So I haven't been home. I have to now live at the hospital because the tumor is so big. I have a collapsed lung. I have fluid in the other lung and my heart is twice its size. So no shit, you can't sing.
Oh my God.
Meanwhile, this x-ray is old. So when we inquired about that, I guess the x-ray had gotten lost. And once it was found on top of the pile, I guess, they frantically tried to get a hold of me because they could see that this was an issue and time had passed. So how, where is she now? So I went into my senior year of high school diagnosed with cancer. And it was not what I was expecting the experience. I was with the same kids from kindergarten to grade 12 and it was this big. So that was really, really traumatizing for me. And the part that was so hard was because of my age. I was 16 at the time of diagnosis. I was treated like a child, as in that's what you want. Not like they were treating me improperly, but that children are treated to cure them and adults are treated to prolong their life. So it's a different approach. So the child treatment can be quite aggressive. And in my year of diagnosis, I was surrounded by kids. And all the children died. And that's when I'm going to call it my manifestor rage, really started to seep into my bones. And I became incredibly angry at this point in my life because there were children. I remember this one baby didn't even know where her nose was. She's so small and she passed away at 9 months old. Another kid, 12 years old, another kid, 4 years old. And it was like being so vulnerable and then being punched and rattled through this experience of death of children. So that was, I can't express enough how shaping that was to me. And as soon as I entered remission, I got a scholarship to journalism, into this creative communications program, and was bald, going to college, wearing little wigs, you know what I mean? And then start all my kind of, I'm going to say volunteering, started to become around youth and children. So at that point, while I was newly healing, I mentored, let's say, teenage girls. I never kind of put myself out there for this, but teenage girls who were going through cancer, their moms would reach out to me, and I would go sit and have kind of conversations with them because I intimately understood at that age, you just want to feel pretty. You want to have a lot of friends. You want to do good in school. If you care about that, you're not fighting for your life.
Yeah.
And so, and developmentally, you're not at full maturity, but you're at this christening time where your maturity is blooming. So I spent this accidental time working directly with youth and children and motivational speaking in the prairie school system. And mostly the message was listen to your body. If something's not feeling right for me, my main symptom was itchy feet.
Really?
I never thought that
Wow.
would mean a tumor in my chest. But now that I've had lymphoma, that's the most common symptom, is this itchiness in the extremities and in the feet. But I'm talking like the itch was so bad that I would be rubbing my feet in my sleep and I'd wake up and they'd be bleeding. Like it was an itch that you
Wow.
couldn't get out.
Oh.
And I knew that was peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
So now when I go into my variable studies and I look at my body's external senses, I have this predisposition for psychic skin. And when there is ever issues with the skin, that's my body's way of shouting, getting it in my attention. So the fact that there was itchy feet as the primary symptom was peculiar to me, once I started connecting those dots. And that's then when my work within human design started to speak. Well, in human design, the cross I have to bear is the left angle cross of healing. So when I plug into the human design system, I can't help but see it as a healing modality. I don't think everyone would experience it that way, but when I use it and my perspective kind of flows through it, that's how I see it. And I use variable studies specifically in that way. We're at this time collectively where there's so much information available to us that anything we want to know is there at a click of a button.
Yep.
Now we're tasked with how to discern what is for us and not for us. Not everything's for us. So how do we filter that out? We can have anything we want, but how do we know now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think variable studies is something that can really help us recognize this is for you, this is not for you. Take that information, be empowered by it, and go experiment to see how much you can recognize that you're taking in that's not for you, and how can you increase your capacity to take in things that are for you. So I find it a very exciting area of study because of the healing potential. Now, I know you're familiar with that, and you had shared before, earlier when we were starting that you were impacted by this work. I would love to hear what you discovered about yourself when you were learning your variables.
Yes. So for me, so I found my human design. It was about 6 months after I had my son. So my body was still very much in the healing process after having my first child. And it didn't feel like the body I grew up with. So in learning my human design and then diving down through the deeper layers, not only did I just find myself completely seen, but it was also like light bulbs clicked, like, oh, no wonder why I don't like when it's like super direct light outside. I'm in direct light for my digestion, or no wonder why I like can't, I'll never forget. I was, with my family, we were at a farmer's market, and I think it was like, I don't know, 12 o'clock in the day. And we're with the kids and they're like, let's get hot dogs. And they're sitting and the sun's beating on us. And I'm like, I can't even take a look at this hot dog right now, let alone bite it. But it's just like that direct light in the sun. So it was in just seeing the ways of the different types of interpreting your design, not just of having the open heart that I have, but
Yeah.
really understanding like, well, that's why I've always felt like not good enough. And like I grew up doing competitive gymnastics, and as much
Cool.
as like you reach these different levels, you do well and get different routines and get different medals, there was always still like that level of not good enough that was just like kind of pounded into me from like
Of
a
course.
conditioning perspective. So the way that human design has really helped me, not just with the variables, but also with just understanding the open energy centers that I have where I take energy and
Yeah.
conditioning in, just helps me feel seen and know that's not my story. Like I need to let that shit go, and also just listen to my body. like you've always said, listen, listen, listen to your body, because our body is so much, holds so much wisdom, and it's just a matter of, I think when we grow up, we're told not to listen to it in many ways, like just to fit in with society or fit in with family ways of doing things, and really listening to your body is the number one thing I think anybody should be taught as they're growing up as a child. And when I found my human design, the first thing I did is I know my kids' birth times. I'm looking at my kids' birth times. How can I support them?
Yes.
While from a digestive perspective, my son's a nervous touch eater. I believe if I remember correctly, your son
Yes,
is
my son is
also
as
a
well.
nervous touch eater. So there's definitely growing up and my mom's family, you got to sit down at the table. You can't leave the table until your food is done.
That.
Like it's just that's the way they were brought up. That's the way it's supposed to go. But letting my son kind of move around, have music on while we're eating. I know as a Valley's girl, music is like my favorite way to connect in with my family, and I think it really helps kind of just keep calm vibes around my home. So.
You brought up some like key points, this society conditioning. We have parents who were really mistreated as kids, not
It's not their fault.
universally,
Yep.
but also universally a bit,
Yeah.
because their parents often said things to them. Now, I always know there's exceptions to the rule, so I'm kind of speaking in this zoomed out way, generationally speaking. They were often told things like, I'm the parent, I'm the boss, shut up, listen to me. Like they were not met as like a sovereign fucking being,
Yeah.
excuse me. And what do we think those people are going to turn into when they're raising kids? Now, they could go the total opposite, or they could mirror what they were shown. That worked for me, it will work for you, when it probably never worked for them. And so now when we learn about things like, okay, there are different ways in which we eat. Not just some of us have sensitivities to specific foods, but certain people have certain conditions they need met when they eat, or they need to eat in certain circumstances. For example, you're a light eater, so you're really a nocturnal creature. And a lot of your experience needs information to come in indirectly. So to be a light eater is not just about eating in the day or eating in the night. There is so much more.
My brain turns
Depth to
on
that.
at night.
So, and that's how you are. And may we let you be how you are. May we not condition you away from how you are. May we not tell you to sit down and eat when it's not your time to be eating. So I think, I work with a lot of parents in this work, because parents always want to know, how do I feed my kid? And what do they need around them developmentally to support their growth? Every parent wants to know that. And every parent wants to intimately understand their child to the best of their ability. And what's great is modern mothers are so keen on getting that birth time, because when we're doing variable studies, we really need a birth time down to the minute, because we want to know the exact moment that child was separate from their mother. So now that we have this information, we could do these acute calculations and understand our children and ourselves more differently. We're empowered by seeing their differences. Like, instead of the stressed out parent who's like, just shut up and eat your dinner because I worked all day and I'm exhausted and now you're complaining about it. Like, that was my mom, she's also indirect. And she was probably like, just put me to bed. Now we can recognize, oh, interesting, as a nervous eater, as somebody who has a sensitivity to the atmosphere when they eat, if it's too calm, this person is simply going to get up and start moving their body, because their body is so intelligent, it knows exactly what it needs.
Yep.
So then the parent who's so concerned with how that's going to look, or they're so distracted by their moving child, they're going to try to stop that behavior and condition that child away from their natural intelligence.
Yep.
So I remember, taking my son out to restaurants. Like, my son was always a quote unquote good eater, because I was always bustling around making his food, and he loved that. He would sit and eat anything. And then we would go to the restaurant that was dead and too quiet, and he would just get up and run through the aisles.
Yep.
And, I did have the reaction of like, oh my God, like, what if someone sees and we get in trouble? There's my trauma. But the place is empty, and he's not bothering anyone. And I'm excited by seeing his body be brilliant. So
Mhm.
for parents, variable studies is a way to, when your child is just developing and they're nonverbal, this is a way you can see them immediately. I had a baby who was a caves environment, and he would always tuck in little corners or cover his head with his blankie and create these little nooks.
Yep.
So that was exciting. It
True.
was
My
like, look,
son's
there you
caves
are being
environment.
you.
Yep.
There you are being
He
yourself.
loves the corners.
And instead of it becoming like, stop doing that, be like me because I'm perfect and I know the way and I'm the best and my ego's huge.
Yep.
How can I get to know you and how are you behaving and how can I become a soldier for your authority, your experience?
The way you are. Mm-hmm.
The way you are. So I think actually like Ra in Human Design, Ra Uru, who had said mothers are going to be the ones who take this somewhere and save us, because they're the ones who are so tuned into their children. And mothers intuitively pick up, no, that my child doesn't like that. And they may not even have this language. My child doesn't like that. And they stick up for their kid. They're the warrior for their kid. And the reason this information is empowering is because it kind of gives you language and information that really helps you stand in that and honor that your responsibility is to teach your child how to be a human. And if you don't know how to be a human because no one taught you, there's going to be some reparenting that goes on, but you're going to do it together. Your child is your teacher. It's not the other way around. So I think that this information is great for kids, for parents who have children, but I think I feel really passionately about that because I was a sick kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of that makes me kind of louder that, hey, parents, this is an amazing tool to support your child and to have them be as healthy as possible and to have them meet incredible milestones of things that they want to do, and you can be their champion. And I think parents want that. I want that. I want to get to know my child for who they are and support them in whatever ability I can.
I want to empower them in every way. Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah. And I think our parents wanted that too. I think it was just the times.
Yeah.
I don't think our parents were bad. I think they were mistreated.
Not at all. It was just the way society was, the way they were conditioned by their family. And as we evolve through every generation, we're growing and trying to do things the best way we see fit based off of the information we have. And I'm sure that's what they try to do. And now that we have the wisdom of the variables, the human design, I know that's what I'm trying to do this generation. And
you and I are both born in 88. And I love that. I made some quips before the call. We're like, ooh, magic number, double infinity.
Yes.
But to my knowledge, in 88 and 89 is when the human design system was first translated, was first, like, let's say, downloaded. And so I'm like, ooh, that's when we were born. Hello. What was going on at that time? And I now kind of call studiers in our age group second generation human design. People who, this is a very, very new modality. If it's only just about 40 years old, we have some of these ancient systems that are thousands of years old. So it is still, I'm going to say in its growing, mutating development stage. So I imagine as more of us are experimenting with this tool, as the world is changing, I think what is going to be needed is this recognition for individuality. And, I'm a light eater, I'm a sound eater, I'm a caves person, I'm a shores person, I'm a valleys person. And when we know that information about each other, or we know someone's a manifester, or we know they're a projector, it does, at least for me, shape how I interact with them. And I do get off on, it's like, oh, this is a valleys person. Okay, let's be intimate. Let's be grounded. Oh, this is a manifester. Try not to ask so many questions. Or like,
because we don't like the questions.
Yeah. Well,
too much.
And also, Ashley, like, you're indirect. So how might I present the question to the room so that you could take it if you wanted to? And I'm not claiming to be perfect at that, but you don't have to answer, right? It might spark something that you want to go initiate somewhere else instead of me going, so Ashley, what do you think about, which we can still do that, of course, but it is fun for me to think about how do you engage with this person's energy in the most supportive way. Like for me, that's fun. because it helps me learn about me. It helps me learn about them. And it helps me learn how to interact with different types of people. Talking to manifestors is tricky.
I agree. No, I agree. Well, it's because we're both like our light bulbs are going off to initiate different things in different ways, and it's like, are we vibing? Are we vibing? And I must say, I pulled our human design chart, relationship chart, because I love to look at the way relationship charts. And one of the channels we have is the channel with the beats. So this is definitely vibing. We got full vibes going on for sure.
I don't know if you saw Genetic Matrix, one of my favorite calculators for body graphs.
Okay.
They released a little teaser email earlier this week that was like, the creator of this calculator was like, sorry, I'm putting on a voice, but here we go.
Let's go.
It didn't sound this way. I'm adjusting it for impact and emphasis, but there's always been, when you and someone else come together, a third entity appears.
Oh, yes.
A third personality, And human design has always known this, but now we have a report, a chart calculation. We're going to show you that. And I was like, fun. I love that. Show me who me and my husband are, because it's true. Like, I notice my husband and I, we come together, we make these weird sounds. Like, we have this weird little language between us that doesn't always come when I interact with other people. And he doesn't do it on his own, but when we come together, and he has a totally open throat. So I'm like, is he just mirroring me, being like, making these weird sounds? But my husband and I are both sound eaters. So we both have sound sensitivity. So that has been very fun to play with because he's low sound. He needs a low volume of information around him. And I'm high sound. So tell me everything. Give me all the info, more info, more info, more info.
Yes.
And he has to tune me out a lot.
Yeah, so you got to find that balance there.
Yeah, he's like, turn her down, please.
Oh, that's beautiful. No, I think there's so much wisdom when you look at quote unquote that third entity, just to understand how to navigate the relationship, or it kind of gives you more grace in sometimes navigating those relationships with, say, your husband or business partner. I know I've done a couple readings for business partners before, and they were like, this is a complete game changer in the way we operate, between like somebody who has a sacral versus emotional authority, and they're trying to make business decisions together, and you can't have that decision, unfortunately, like instantly. You gotta give the emotional authority time, and that was just a complete game changer. So
I found it so healing to learn my mother had emotional authority. I do not. I'm an ego authority, so I'm heart-led. So I take in the feelings and emotions of others, and they filter through me before I know how I even feel about it. And sometimes I might amplify their emotions. Sometimes I might numb out and disconnect. But my mom, we always kind of said she's a passionate French lady, and so there was a certain persona that was put with that. But once I learned that she was emotional authority and she shouldn't actually respond and react in the moment, and she should sleep on things, and she should have the time and space to allow her to feel it out, it totally changed how I interact with her, because I want to understand my mother. I want to deeply love my mother and care for her in a way that she knows that, and a lot of that comes through osmosis. She's indirect like you. So what am I doing peripherally? And what I immediately noticed was how much the world wanted her to respond immediately in the now. Like, I was shocked at just how much she was forced to not be herself. And she was actually quite good at like buying herself time, without, consciously knowing. So whenever I would kind of come to her with something that I, let's say, needed her to respond to as an emotional generator, I would always kind of end with, so sleep on it and I'll circle back tomorrow. Like, not even like get back to me tomorrow. I'll circle back tomorrow. And it completely, all our interactions smoothed out. Because I was initiating, I was allowing her the time and space to respond, because the emotional authority is the most powerful authority. Like, we all take a knee to them, and they're 50% of the population.
There's waves, girl. There's waves.
Oh, there's waves.
Yep.
And that's another thing. There are waves to the emotional authority.
Yep.
And my mother had waves. So to then recognize the waves, I then was not affected by them at all. There
Mhm.
she is going through her emotions,
Mhm.
and I can hold space for her emotions, but I don't take them on. I'm not
Yep.
triggered and
Don't take them
activated by them. They have
personally.
nothing
Mhm.
to do with me. But
Mhm.
as a small person, a young child, I didn't have that awareness and no one guiding me through that. And I was walking on eggshells, trying to make sure everything was handled for my mother who had this really hard life, and had these challenging experiences. Not only did she lose the love of her life, then she's watching her youngest child die of cancer. Like, talk about my nightmare that I've already experienced indirectly. We're only afraid
Mhm.
of things that have already happened to us, like
Mhm. So true.
we're like, "Ooh, I don't want that to happen." It's like, because you've already been through that.
Mhm.
So for me, learning about the authority of my mother dramatically changed our relationship. And I think a lot of people have some ill will with their parents of things that they didn't receive, they thought they should receive. I notice a lot of people, once they become parents, they forgive their parents
Oh,
because they're
yes.
like,
You have a
I
whole
didn't
new
know.
perspective. Whole new perspective.
Yeah. And you know what? I have some friends who chose not to become parents. It's not for them. And I have found that they don't go on that journey in the same way. Their relationship with their parents remain a little bit different. And it's just a different experience. But for me, a lot of my friends who've become parents, I've watched them go through this shift with their own parents. At first they really realized like maybe they were in an unsafe environment, maybe they were neglected, maybe they didn't get what they needed. And so they feel that grief and that sort of, let's call it animosity toward the parent. And then they have their sleepless nights or their episodes where they freak out or they don't know what to do or they behave in a way that they feel guilty and regret. And then there's this little voice that starts to understand the parent, and I can't even tell you my times I've gone to my mom like, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I'm sorry for how I am. And she's like, oh my gosh, it's fine. But like I think that I just think when we get curious about each other and stop trying to control each other and homogenize each other to be like one another, some really beautiful things emerge. And I think at the heart of it, healing is what emerges. And we're in this era and age where we're getting sick with everything. Everything makes us sick. So what do we need to know about how to be well in this age, in this era?
Mhm. It's all about really dropping into your body and listening to help you choose what's right for you, what's not right for you, because there is so much information coming at us, overwhelming our nervous systems, and it's taking time to be away from that because when you're inundated by it, how can you decipher anything? There's too much coming at you. So I don't know. As Earth dragons, the year of 88, connecting with Mother Earth is one thing that I know I find really supportive for me, and just literally unplugging. Gotta unplug everything.
Valleys. Yeah, valleys, it's a disconnect.
Mhm.
It's very simple to say, like, you got to sink into your body. You got to listen to your body, but there would have been a time in my life where you could have said that to me and I would have said like, I think I am, like I am listening to
Yeah.
my body. Like, so
Yeah.
we
Or
don't
I work
always
out every day, I
know.
listen to my body, but
Hello, like I'm tuned
things
in,
mhm,
but
mhm, mhm,
but we're not.
mhm.
And so much of our experience has been trained and groomed us to move away from our natural intelligence. So there are a lot of us who think we're listening to our bodies when in fact we're doing the exact opposite. We're muting. We're not reacting. We're not something so simple. You have to pee, go pee. You don't just hold it in. No, your body wants to excrete that. No, hold it or hold it. Like just little that seems so simple, but little things like that. A huge one is we say yes when we want to say no. Oh, but I'm listening to my body. No, you're not. There's no way you want to do that. You said yes when you absolutely are dreading it and don't want to. Oh, it's a good opportunity though. Well, that's your mind talking you into that. Your
Mhm.
body
What does your
gave
heart
you a
want
clear no.
in your body?
Totally.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, for me, I didn't know how to drop into my body. I didn't know. I thought I was doing that. So part of why I bow to the human design system was because it gave me language to understand my specific body. It gave me experiments to try to really recognize, am I listening or am I not? And most times I thought I was and I wasn't. And my biggest teacher in that was raising a child, and how can I speak to this child? And parenting was not natural to me. Like, I had rage in the beginning and like, I got to respond to this child all the time. What the heck? I have no freedom. What is going on? And it was really exhausting. So similar story to you, like once I became a parent, I really needed to, I was aware of human design in my late 20s, kind of going through my Saturn return, but I wasn't really like practicing or experimenting with it. And when I became a parent, it's like I had to.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I'm having a nervous breakdown. Like, something's not working. I'm not listening to my body. You know what I mean? Even though my body right now is confused. I'm on the couch. I don't know what's going on. I don't feel good. Why can't I think clearly? I can normally think clearly. So just having that moment of recognition, like I don't feel like myself, was for me the kind of catalyst for change. Like we need to make a change here. Something needs to switch. And at that point, I switched roles with my husband and I said, I can't be the stay-at-home caregiver for this time of his life. It's going to have to be you. And we made that swap. And it stayed that way for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, you could be primary parent, you can respond. And now our child is older and doesn't kind of need us in those same ways. But, society would say, no, you can't do that. You're the mother. You're the mother. You're the mother. You got to give up yourself entirely for your child. That's what it means to be a good parent. And let me tell you,
you got to do what feels
me.
right for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And what am I teaching my child? Because our children learn through osmosis. And if my child sees me only prioritizing everyone but myself, my child is going to think that's normal. My child is going to think that's the way they should behave. And it's simply not true. So sometimes, put your, what do you call that in the airplane? Put your mask on first.
Yeah.
Because that teaches your child to do that. If you want to take care of people, you have to take care of yourself first. And so the irony is we go and take care of everyone, and that's what we're showing them. That's how we're showing them to be. And I would never want my child to put themselves last.
Well, they always
so why
say
am I doing that?
Right. Well, they say you can't fill anyone else's cup up until you fill your cup up. And as much as you want to be there for your children, if you're trying to serve them from an empty cup, you're going to burn out.
Burnout. You're not going to pour anything. Cup's empty.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Empty. Yes. So one fun thing I like to do in all of my podcasts is I pull a human design. I don't know if you've seen the quantum human design cards.
Fun. Is this by Karen Curry Parker?
Fun. But I love to pull these cards because I find them interesting, and the past two episodes that I've done, like the card that comes through just like speaks to the conversation. So I always find it so interesting to pull them. So I'm going to kind of like spread them out, and then you tell me where in the deck you want me to pull from you, and use your shamanic powers to kind of pull through.
Like I have such a crazy thing. Let's go with, this is going to be the one in the very end on the bottom, underneath them all. Yep.
This one? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, the very, very bottom?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go.
Drum roll.
Gate 14, the gate of creation.
Ooh.
Something new. And this comes from the sacral center. So I always read the mastery of this gate when I dive through these to share it with.
I'm unfamiliar with this deck, so this is such a treat for me.
I know, I love this deck. It's so much fun. So the mastery of the gate of creation, the ability to be at peace about having resources, to be in a constant state of trust that everything you need will show up for you, and your I can't even read it out. Your reality in accordance to your alignment with source. The resources that you have allow you to increase the resources for others, to change the definition of work, to no longer work for material gain, but to work for the sake of transforming the world and being in flow with life. To know that supports flow and alignment with your heart. Beautiful.
Obviously, we love that. Ego
Yes.
manifestors, like, yum, 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 thank
Yes.
you.
So good. So good. Brilliant, brilliant. And at
Fun
that
deck.
point,
Thank you for that. I took
of
notes.
course, of course. And I want to transition to talk about so from the human design side, how you dove into, I'd love to learn how you dove into the shamanic arts and how you became a shamanic practitioner. I know I've personally taken, I was a part of the lodge when it existed, and I've done several of your shamanic journeys. It'll always stick with me, the notice everything term that you queue up to tee off those journeys. They've been eye-opening and life-changing experiences for me. So I'd love for you to share more about how you got into the shamanic arts
Yes.
and all that
I
you
would love
do.
to get into that. So my shamanic studies predates my journalism and my human design backgrounds and all the other type of studies that I dabbled with. I'm a practitioner for the last decade with the Foundation of Shamanic Studies. And this is a place that is sort of devoted to the preservation of the non-denominational cultural teachings. When you go across our planet, humans, no matter where you find them, they always have spiritual rituals that are alike. And that's interesting. And all kind of cultures across the world will engage with plant material in some way and then enter ritual. So they might drink tea, they might eat ayahuasca, they might smoke cleanse or smudge, but they're using that plant material to kind of alter the experience and to go into some type of ritual. So when I was admitted in the hospital as a child, I lived at the hospital for the whole summer, and I had my own kind of room and this kind of quarantine space. And I was forced to be really isolated. And there was periods of time where I wouldn't see people except for certain nurses. And there is a window in my room, and it overlooked a river. And I would just, because I was so weak, I would just sit in this chair by the window and look at the river. And once the children on the ward started dying, I would imagine them walking with me by the river. It was my way of, I think, making peace with the grief that I was going through by watching these little people suffer and then pass. And I had had Reiki in the hospital. So there was this sort of alternative healing that was always available. So it wasn't just like classic medicine, but there was all kinds of, I'm going to call it alternative medicines. And I was very curious about Reiki because someone had given me Reiki and it was a profound healing experience for me. And to see the person react and have things happening to them that I had been experiencing was also very interesting. So once I entered remission, I wanted to know about that. But I also went into journalism. So I started to have this investigative kind of nature about me. And I trained in Reiki at maybe 18, 19 years old. And I got level 2 in Yasui Reiki. And as a practitioner, I was giving people Reiki, but I started to pull creatures. Let's say I'd pull a bear out of their belly, or I would pull a whale out of their gut, or I would get these visuals. And I just felt overcome to share it with the individual. Now, that is not what's recommended in any type of studies like this. You should keep it to yourself. It's not for the person. But I always found that when I shared, that extra information meant something to them. And one of my aunts who is one of the people who had given me Reiki, she said to me, there's someone you should talk to. This isn't really Reiki anymore, what you're doing. And so she kind of had this way of guiding me. And I didn't know at the time that there were these kind of circle of shamans around me. It wasn't really talked about. And I was just naive and young and healing, And I ended up going to this place called Light of the Prairie. It was on this beautiful bee apiary. And there was all kinds of curious people like me there. And we were going to learn how to journey to non-ordinary reality. We were going to learn these certain techniques. So I started to do that because I was having these experiences of pulling things out of people's bodies. And that wasn't really Reiki anymore. So maybe you need, the right type of guidance here. And so the foundation was kind of presented to me. And at that time, I have a Métis child. I married an Indigenous man and have an Indigenous child. So I was very journalistically interested in cultural appropriation and these people who are doing these sort of performative things without understanding. And so there was a huge angle of that. When you explore shamanism, you kind of do learn about that, because there are certain cultures that happen in very specific parts of the world. So I was really just interested in the information, not necessarily thinking that I was a practitioner, let's say, of this, because I was really just there learning, and there's all these strange people around me. And then the next thing I know, I'm like continuously training, but I'm there kind of like observing, not fully realizing that you're learning how to do everything. This is why you're pulling these animals out. This is what that botanical means. And I started to create, depending on the creature, the landmark, the botanical, the crystal that I encountered, I started writing and translating what it meant. And I started to accumulate a massive library of what I'm going to call omens, so that when I was journeying and I, pulled a whale out of someone's stomach, I knew what it meant. I had documented it. Or if there was an eagle coming out of the head, I documented it. And so I started to relay that information to people. I then proceeded to get a bunch of type of designations in this space. So extraction work, how to remove things from the spirit, power retrieval, soul retrieval. Because in all shamanism, shamanic illness can always be deduced to one of two things. Something is there that shouldn't be there, or something is missing that you need. And so as the practitioner, you're really going in to look for that. So this training and a way of viewing the world influenced the way I translate human design. I was a studier of the I Ching, of Feng Shui, of some of these systems that are a part of human design, because human design is a fusion of multiple systems. So I inherently, when we in variable studies, when we were learning about environment, you learn about hardscapes and landscapes. Well, that's Feng Shui language. So I was, it's suddenly felt like I understood the system from this weird shamanic lens, but I didn't really lead with that. I kind of just tucked that in the background. And as somebody who regularly journeys to non-ordinary reality, so you're journeying to upper world, to lower world, to interworlds, it's a healing technique. I started to feel like I need more stimulation or something. And I had at that point learned I was high sound. So I started to design soundtracks. Again, I had that music background from being a kid in music. And started to design cinematic soundtracks that were shamanic journeys charged with a mission to help deliver you to, let's say, the seat of the soul inside, or to these different places within, so you could actually do the deep work. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It means going in and facing the things that you're running from. And instead of drumming to a 220 BPM drum beat to induce that sort of trance-like state, can we sweep people away on the emotions, by the emotions in the cinematic soundtracks, and program the mind with something to pay attention to? So it became this big experiment of like, how can I get people into this place inside? And I always sort of tucked it in the background of whatever I was doing. So if I was teaching astrology, I would do journeying as well to support. If I was teaching human design, I would do journeying in the background to support. If I was helping people set up their homes using Feng Shui, I was using journeying in the background for support. And now I'm reaching this interesting place where it's feeling like that's needing to come in the forefront now, where the world is strange enough. Here I am in my weird regalia and my red hat and my red jacket to keep me safe, and come on a journey with me. Come on this adventure deep inside. And what started happening was I would take it to festivals and I would do it with people in real time, and it would be cathartic. People would be like having these huge releases, and it made me feel like, get that sickness out of you. Get it out of you. You don't have to hold this in. And it became this sort of shamanic arts, this tool that I've been now doing for 15 years, but registered with the foundation, I think, for 10 now. So I am trained in that in the background, but most of my work that is sort of known publicly is in human design. But this is behind it, influencing how I see the whole system.
Absolutely. Well, you're tapping into deeper layers of energy. While they're all
Yes.
all energy, whether you're talking about feng shui, human design, they're all different languages, but really it's all the universe speaking to us.
When I was 16 and in this oncology room looking at this x-ray of my chest, now you'll know that's impactful because as an ego manifester, my heart is where I make my decisions from. And part of my tumor had metastasized to my heart. That's when we finally found the sickness. So thank you, body, for showing me that and giving me all those signals. You're brilliant. I will pay greater attention going forward. I remember looking at this x-ray and I turned to the oncologist and I said, her name's Dr. McCusker. And I was like, Dr. McCusker, I don't understand how this happened to me. Like, how did this thing grow in my body? And the first thing she said was, we think it's environment. And so I remember immediately thinking, okay, I live next to a pipeline in this small town. There must be toxic something in the water. Like I was thinking very literally. And now as I'm approaching 40, I can see that this larger central theme and thesis of my life has been in this deep examination of the relationship we have to our environment and how it impacts our health and wellness. And actually, what is environment? Is it the pipeline that was outside my childhood home? That's peculiar. I went and did a huge research project on it to find out everything I could.
I'm
because
sure you did.
it was very Aaron Brockovich in my town. There's this pipeline that was the head of Canada's was moved to this tiny town, this tiny French town, and every single house that was around the pipeline had been infected by cancer. That's weird. So when I went to go to our kind of news stations to do a story about it, there were certain people that I had needed to talk to, and I just nobody who worked there would talk to me. It was wild. And so I got discouraged.
Yeah.
But I can see that I was looking in the wrong place. Like I was looking for someone to blame, right? Like I was looking for, and I wasn't coming at it with the right energy. And again, what is environment? Is it the town we live in? I suppose. Is it our nation? I suppose. But what I've learned is people are environment. People fill the space around us. The dynamics between me and my mother affects me. The dynamics between me and my friends affect me. That is environment. They fill the space around me. If I hate my job, that's environment. If I am sleeping next to a person I don't love anymore, that's environment. So the question started to be not like, am I living in a place where there's something in the land that's hurting me? But how am I living? What's my habitat? What's my lifestyle? How do I engage with people? And now at this point, with everything I've seen, I have seen people become sick because they're in a loveless marriage. How could you not? You're spending your life next to someone that doesn't make your heart sing anymore.
No.
Maybe they did at one point.
Yeah.
Or if you're going into work every day doing this job that you hate and you don't want to be there, you're not listening to your body. Your body is saying, I hate this, but I'm so tuned in. I am listening. But are you?
Yeah.
So this thesis of how our relationship with our environment impacts our health, I don't think my oncologist was wrong, but I think I had a superficial understanding of what she meant about environment. And now what I think about environment is so much more expanded. I think it's totally the habits I do, the practices I do, the people I talk to, sure, the places I go frequently, because I'm somebody who's intimately experiments with this part of life, and I will move a lot. I've moved across the country, I've moved into a different place because I'm wanting to see, well, how does the body change when you adjust the home? And the lifestyle always dramatically adjusts. It always does. So if you are ever in a situation where you're caught and you're not feeling good, something radical to do is to examine your relationships. You may need to break up with some people, and it's not that they're bad or you're bad, but you're 50% of this relationship and something's not healthy. And so you're a part of that. It can be leaving jobs that we hate being at. It can be moving homes, but it can be other things. Those are pretty major things. And usually when we're not listening to our body, we're getting a signal somewhere like in there where we're not paying attention to. And so my work really explores, well, Ashley, what's your signal? because we have signals, but everyone's signals are different. So for example, you're somebody who's feeling cognition and you have an external sense of external sense of taste, forgive me, in your valley. So that means your inner sense has this deep feeling. You are able to plug into the other and truly feel everything they're feeling. And most people aren't going to get that about you. Like, people can't lie to you. You're plugging in and you're feeling it. Try to pull that over my eyes. I can feel you. But also, you can get fried because you feel everything, even if it's and again, you take things in indirectly. So if your partner is suffering, you are suffering. If your child is suffering, you are suffering, and that's just expansive to know about. But you also might have episodes where you're depressed or tearful. May you listen. And your outer sense of taste, you sometimes will be in environments where your skills just naturally come alive. Everything's easy for you. We can see that things should be easy for you based on that orientation you have. So if you go somewhere and it's feeling hard, may you listen. If you get any issues with your mouth, teeth, lips, the skin on your face, it's a sign that something in your environment, in your lifestyle isn't working for you, and your brilliant body's trying to get your attention. These are not the signs that everyone would have, but they are yours. So how do we educate each other to pay attention to specific signs that body is designed to emit? Because then you get excited. Like, there my body is being brilliant, telling me, guiding me, and I love you, body. I will listen to you, So I think that's where we are now. I think we're at this time of encouraging our individuality and listen to your body. And by encouraging you to listen to your body, I'm going to listen to my body, and we're all going to kind of do our best to practice being sovereign beings while having the space to recognize we don't know how to do that, and we're just learning. So We're going to make mistakes, and may we have grace with ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, in many ways, we're almost like babies, kind of relearning. And
we're 100% babies.
Yeah.
No shame.
Relearning.
Yep.
1,000%.
Be a baby.
No, but and it's such a beautiful thing to just be born in a time where we have connection, to have this type of wisdom to heighten our experience, heighten our human experience. Because I think as we move into the new paradigm, and really having faith and the way things are changing. I mean, when we look at the world around us, how wild and rapidly things are changing. Yes.
I swear the last 10 years, every astrologer under the sun has been like, the new paradigm.
Yeah.
And then human design lovers are like, the background frequency is changing.
Yeah.
We're leaving the cross of planning. We're going to the sleeping phoenix. Like, we sound nuts when we talk like that.
But
now you can see it happening.
You can see it.
It's like you see
you
these.
Can't deny
like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
No. And we've been hearing about this because, like, I'm from a time where I remember December 12th, 2012, the Mayan calendar said the world was going to end. Or Y2K, year 2000, the world's going to end.
Right.
There's always, just recently, the world is going to end. So there's always these things like that happen. And so I think I had kind of filed this philosophy or this parable about 2027 into this sort of box that was kind of dismissive. Like, I've heard this before.
Right.
Was the world going to end?
That's growing up as a millennial. We've
totally. You're right. That's millennial culture
in some ways.
But I don't. These sort of quote unquote prophecies. Whenever that the world is going to end, but what we know will end. What we care about will shift. So now to see it crumbling and restructuring, yes, is disturbing. But what's also true, I personally find it motivating because it's like, my gosh, I'm alive at this time with these other incredible people, and we're essentially tasked with building the new paradigm and how we want it to feel and look. And that can be actually very, very motivating instead of depleting. At least that's kind of how I'm choosing to look at it. So I think this is an exciting time, even if it's nerve-wracking. And the time is now to be listening to our bodies, encouraging one another to listen to our bodies, not putting our shit on each other. And when we do put our shit on each other, because we will, because we're just learning, to have a lot of grace, And I think the future and the new paradigm will have that kind of spaciousness for individuality and almost encourage us to. Because now what's going to save us, to help us survive, is not being homogenized and alike and fitting in, being like everyone else. It's standing out. It's being weird, quirky yourself. And everyone right now is kind of doing these new things or new characters are coming out because they're calibrating to whatever this is that we're moving into.
Letting their individuality shine.
Yes. Yes.
1,000%. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, last piece I want to just touch on briefly, since I know I want to be cognizant of your time, is
Sure.
Feng Shui. How did you get into Feng Shui?
So Feng Shui, I remember my very first kind of training I took was in 2012 with Lillian Tu. Lillian Tu is my go-to Feng Shui practitioner. I recommend her to everyone. She's actually not a Feng Shui master, but people call her that because she has the public respect. You know, people always tell you what you are. But in classic Feng Shui, it was actually just reserved for men. So some places are still quite strict with that. But the reason I got into Feng Shui in 2012, I was out of college. I had graduated in 2009. I was kind of in the workforce. I was working in finance at that time. And I had 2 roommates. And we lived in this house in this cool part of town. And I remember, like, looking back now, we were all manifestors. Very cool. I didn't know that at the time. But I was uncomfortable in the home. I was uncomfortable. And it makes sense. But then I lived with, one was a lesbian and the other one was a new lesbian. Okay. So there was some lesbian drama, let me tell you. And I'm just downstairs doing my thing. Yeah. And they had the same girlfriend or partner. Because happened.
Oh, wow.
And they lived upstairs across from each other and I was downstairs in my own kind of room. And I remember just thinking, like, because they were not at each other, but the energy wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I started to I just sort of habitually moved my room around. And I did this a lot as a kid because my mom did this. My mom is a markets person, so she needs things fresh every season. So I just kind of also freshened things up seasonally. And so I would move my room around a lot. And because of the arrangement of the house, sometimes I would move into a new room. So the living room would become a different room, you know what I mean? And I would just kind of switch things around. And my girlfriends always commented on how good it felt and how they would notice certain things shifting. So I started to get really into that study and then finally like moved out and got away from them and had my own place.
And you're like, oh,
and
and it really felt better.
Oh, felt so good after that. Yeah. And then it was a new home. So it was, I remember we were in a period 8 then. And so there was new things to learn about the home. And that was fun. I really liked that. And I noticed the differences. And at that point, when I was probably 2013, I started studying human design. So I had lived alone. I started studying human design. My space was feeling good. I was feeling good. And I was single. So I was like, I'm gonna see what it's like to initiate in the dating game. And my husband is who I first initiated with. He's a pure generator, open throat.
Wow.
And it was the easiest dating. I married him, right? Like it was just
loud.
Well, because you always think the guy is going to be it's like, I'm pining for him. It's so hard. Oh, it's like, that's not the guy.
Well, as women
That's not the guy.
manifestors, like it's complete opposite of like.
Great point, right? Let him come to you. And this was saying, go initiate. And my husband was so into that, like, oh, strong woman, come initiating. Yes. So it worked really well for us, But I don't think I would have even got to that point had I not set myself up using these Feng Shui tools and learning about these different environments. So every time I would move, I would apply these things that I learned. I would calculate the energy sectors of the house. And I just started to get quite deep in that. And I would take a lot of training with Lillian. I've only ever trained with Lillian. There's a guy named Cliff Tan that I used to do some studying with. He is an architect, and during COVID, when everybody was home in their places, he would do these little videos like showing you different ways to like rearrange this space. And I enjoyed him as well, but I found that the way he would recommend setting up a space I didn't necessarily like, which then showed me, okay, this is an art. Like here's what you need to know about the space, but then you really do have to feel into how this works. And at that point, I started fusing my environment knowledge in human design with my Feng Shui studies. So not only do you want to understand the energy of this room, you want to understand your energy within that room. And that really started to change how I set up my space, how I set up my child's space, you know? And I think because I have lived in many places, I've had a lot of um, experiences where I get to set up the space and it's different and I notice it in myself. And in 2024, um, the feng shui frequencies changed. So we moved into something called period 9, where everything now for the next 20 years is going to be amplified and a little bit intense. And so that's been my first period change in as a feng shui kind of practitioner. So then everything that applied before doesn't apply now, and houses start to feel stale and they need upgrades. And I just, again, it feeds into this thesis of what is our relationship with our environment and what do we not know? And how much does our health hinge on our relationship with the space outside of us?
Mm-hmm. It's everything. It's all energy. It's everything, everything, everything. Yeah. I found feng shui in I did my feng shui training when I was doing my first kind of human design training, which was a kiss goodbye to your 9 to 5. And I signed up for the feng shui training before the kiss goodbye to your 9 to 5, knowing that I've always loved environments. I love the way things look and I notice how things feel, which is in my design.
That's very you. Yep.
Yeah. And it's just, and when I went through the kiss goodbye to your 9 to 5, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many layers of human design you can pull into feng shui. And then I found you and I was like, we're doing it. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I find when I talk about that, a lot of people are like from one of the worlds, like either feng shui or human design. They're like, oh, like they see, because both those systems are pulling from the I Ching.
Yes.
So they're referencing the same information.
It's all energy. Yeah. 1,000%.
Yes. I honestly just find environment studies very fun and very rewarding. And I think before we align any of the variables, before you can eat well, you need to set yourself up to be nourished. You could be eating healthy, and you're not getting anything out of it because you're not set up yet. You might want to have a clear mindset or learn, but if you're not set up, you can't. So everything hinges back to environment and your ability to feel comfortable in the space around you, comfortable in what's happening outside your body. And you're then confronted with how uncomfortable you are all the time because of what you're forced to deal with that you're not aware of. And so as you increase your capacity to recognize that, grief definitely comes out because you realize this isn't healthy for me and I've been doing it for 10 years or whatever the story is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, well, Vaness, this has been such an amazing conversation. For people who want to work with you, what's the best way to go about connecting with you and engaging with you?
If you want to work with me directly, I have a private practice that you can work with me through at vanesshenry.com, VANESSHENRY.com.
Tag it in the show notes.
Tag in the show notes. If you are interested in any type of journey work with me, that's the place where I take people into non-ordinary reality, journey to the seat of the soul, so that you can experiment with what it actually feels to have deep internal healing. And also, we are waking up and aware of the fact that, we go across, when we live our life, we have traumatic experiences where we're not equipped to deal with whatever happened there. And so we compartmentalize it. And from a shamanic perspective, you have soul loss there. Parts of you fragment and break away. And a lot of shamanic healing is going back and retrieving those broken bits to recover your missing soul portions. Again, is something there that shouldn't be or is something missing? And when something is missing, how do you get it back? And so there is something to shamanism that is physical, even though it's a formless practice. So all my work with that can be found at vanesshenry.com. But if you are interested in learning the variables with me and learning how to recognize the signs and signals in your body, I've put all my resources on thehumandesignvariables.com, where You can train with me there. You can reference audio libraries there, embodiment maps. It's sort of a hub for when you're ready to experiment with this part of your design. This is a go-to place for you. It's made for human design lovers. I am affiliated with Genetic Matrix and the Jovian Archive, although this is not a Jovian Archive teaching. So that's the source of human design. But when I make recommendations with them and stuff, I might get paid for that, but they don't pay me to do this. I'm not affiliated in that way. This is sort of the left angle cross of healing 6-2 ego manifester version.
This is your creation. This is what you built.
Yeah, of listening to the body, And if you want to listen to the body, here's a specific way you can do it. And if you're interested in that and learning that with me, because you have human design literacy, thehumandesignvariables.com is the place to go. I was sharing with Ashley, though, before I got on, that I'm hard to find on social media. I have left sort of the meta platform. So the only kind of real places to find me is YouTube at Vaness Henry channel and Pinterest, because I love to pin beautiful things. So I often will pin to boards that are like, here's what to look for caves. Here's what to look for valleys, just to give you kind of physical learning examples to set up your space.
Pictures worth 1,000 words. I love them all.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Vanessa. This has been a beautiful conversation. Everybody, please tune in, like, follow, subscribe for more information about Energy and Me, Abundantly You, and sharing all of Vanessa's and her practices. So thank you, Vanessa, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And wishing you a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Cheers to you.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for tuning in today. This conversation left me genuinely moved by Vanessa's story, her wisdom, and the depth of the healing work she is bringing to the world. Vaness has been one of my longtime go-to guides for understanding the human design variables, and the way she weaves them into your environment is something truly special. Plus, as a dreamer myself, I'm in love with her shamanic work and the journeys she can take you on. While we each work through different energetic lenses, the thread that runs through all of it is the same. Your environment can be set up to truly support you. The space you come home to is an energetic reflection of you, and tending to it is one of the most profound acts of self-care there is. If today's conversation stirred something in you, I invite you to go deeper directly with Vaness. She is a shamanic practitioner who specializes in helping you learn to listen to your body in a deeper, truer way to truly come home to yourself. And her private sessions are where that work truly comes alive. All of her links are in the show notes. With love and gratitude, I'm Ashley. I'll see you on the next one, and may peace be with you. Thank you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like and subscribe to follow along for more empowering discussions about aligning your energy and letting your light shine. Wishing you wellness.